Hi everybody, this is Paddy from OddsOnFPL and I'm going to be here today talking about Game Week 4. My plan, also talking about odds, clean sheets, goal scores, expected points, and going through a few of your questions too. So if that's something that interests you, stick around. So yeah, how's it going again? This is my team from last week. It wasn't a great week with an overall Game Week rank of 5,600,021,000. But overall, the overall rank is 1,344,000. Not great, but you know, it's all right. Started the season okay, but clearly, as I said in our last week's video, there are issues in the squad, and the main one here is this fella here, Ward, and his bench option Iverson. The one thing that I did really enjoy about last week was that I chose Andreas to start instead of Nico Williams or Neto. The one issue with Neto now is his price has dropped by 0.2 million. So he's not getting me points and he's losing me value. In terms of the rest of my team, it was a horror show in the defense. You can see there's 2 points from players like Walker, James, Cancelo, Trent Alexander, and Ward. And these were not games where the fixes were particularly difficult. Trent, for example, was up against United where there was an upset of a 2-1 win. Happy with it, but FPL team wasn't great for it. Then I don't think anybody went into the Newcastle game thinking that City would, concede 3 goals. Newcastle looked immense. They decided to match them for man and pressed well. Really looked very impressive. Leicester, this was the only game that I could imagine they'd keep a clean sheet. He got up to 60 minutes without conceding and you were thinking, finally, a 4 million punt has worked. But alas, it did not come to fruition. Ended up conceding 2 goals and this season he's got a steady flow of 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. And realistically, if I had just been a little bit less frugal, I could have got in Sanchez from Brighton and it would have been a lot different. If you looked at Brighton's fixture so far, Sanchez has gotten 4 points, 6 points, 8 points. So the difference is really noticeable. I think he's probably going to be the player I'll bring in this week too. Looking at the midfield then, Salah captain fortunately was the best captaincy pick out of the 2 options, or even the 3 or 4. Looking at the options who it could have been Salah, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, Haaland. Realistically, it was always going to be between Salah and Haaland, and Salah just proved his worth again at 13 million, scoring that goal when it looked like he was going to blank. Overall, a pretty disappointing week, but in all honesty, I think a lot of people would have had disappointing weeks considering the ownership of some of the players here. Like Haaland is owned by a total of 61% of players. Gabriel Jesus is owned by over 80% of players. Yeah, 81.7. Salah as well, 59.8. Overall, it was a week for the differentials. So you had differential picks in your team, such as Rodrigo, who's becoming less and less of a differential. You did well, so congratulations. Looking at the team, the most obvious issue obviously is Archer may not play. He might get a loan move to the Championship after Gerrard said he was going to stay, but it is what it is. Iverson kept out 3 penalties during the League Cup win for Leicester, and after the game, Brendan Rodgers came out and said that Ward is my definitive number 1 choice captain, or not captain, goalkeeper, so he's not going to lose his spot anytime soon. But looking at the next 2 fixtures, it's against Chelsea and Man United, so that's going to have to be something to consider. So since my transfer this week is going to be for the goalkeeper, the most important thing to look for when you're choosing a goalkeeper is one that is most likely to keep a clean sheet. And that's the segue to the next section. I've taken these odds here from a website called FPL Factory. It's a new enough website, looks very handy. I compared some of the odds to the odds on Odds Checker, and they matched up. I didn't compare every single one, but it just makes my life a little bit easier rather than having to compile it myself. Looking at the teams who are the most likely to keep a clean sheet this week, it's Liverpool and Man City. Both of their goalkeepers will be over 5.5 million with Alisson and Ederson. Then at Arsenal, I obviously can't get in Arsenal's goalkeeper because I have 3 players. And then there's Chelsea. Chelsea last week looked pretty poor, to be honest. Against Leeds, they just didn't look up for it at all. They conceded 3 goals, and I'm not sure if I want to spend 5 million on a Chelsea goalkeeper. But their fixtures are against Leicester, Southampton, West Ham, and Fulham in the next 4, so that might be the transfer to make. But yeah, I have the money with 1.1 million in the bank, so that's something to consider. Looking at the rest of the options, then there's Tottenham, where Lloris is 5.5 million, then Brentford with David Raya, and then Brighton with Sanchez. Man United have De Gea, who I do not want, and then Aston Villa have obviously Martinez. So looking at the teams this week, the players that I would probably want to consider for goalkeepers would be somebody like Dean Henderson, Mendy, David Raya, Sanchez from Brighton. But if I'm going based purely on the odds, it's probably going to have to be Mendy this week. Looking at the fixture, on paper it's against Leicester, who do look poor, but they've got goals in them, Leicester. With Maddison, Vardy, players like that, Harvey Barnes, I'm not sure if he's fully back. They do have talent. Then Brighton against Leeds, if I look at that, I think Brighton are more likely to keep a clean sheet than Chelsea. But the teams decided based on expected points. Looking at the rest of the teams, Liverpool are probably a dead cert to keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth and keep their first clean sheet of the season. City against Palace also will probably keep 70% of possession. I can't see Palace getting at them like they did against Liverpool, even though Liverpool probably should have kept the clean sheet there. Arsenal against Fulham. Fulham look good. Like, looking at the fixtures this week, I can't really see a game that I would almost guarantee a clean sheet in. I think Brentford's 28.57% chance of a clean sheet is lower than I would expect at home against Everton, who look like they lack firepower, and Gordon's head might be gone a little bit. Looking at the fixtures on Sunday, Spurs against Forest could be one, but Forest look better and they've made some good signings. Wolves against Newcastle, can't really predict that one. It could go either way. And then Aston Villa against West Ham also could be another one that goes either way. So one thing that I'm going to ask you now to do is to subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers and I'd really appreciate it if you did click subscribe. Next up is the players this week who are most likely to score. These odds again are from FPL Factory. Looking at the odds, it's based off of their anytime goal scorer odds. I've compared it myself, confirmed they're correct. This does not incorporate expected minutes. So Haaland's based off the fact that he's starting, and if he plays 90 minutes, same with Salah, Jota, Jesus, even somebody like Armando Broja or Cesare Casadei. These are just odds based off the fact they'd start. So looking at this week's most likely goal scorers, it's Erling Haaland and Mohamed Salah. Looking at the games, City against Palace and Liverpool against Bournemouth, the best captaincy has to be Mohamed Salah. Considering the difference between them is so minute, it's slightly over 3% for an anytime goal. And there's an extra point for a midfielder, as well as clean sheet points. Salah's going to be the bona fide pick for captaincy this week. I would expect somebody like Luis Diaz at 40% to also be a good outsider of a pick, but personally I wouldn't bother with him. Liverpool don't fully look like they're clicking yet. They haven't at all this season, really. They've gotten a couple of draws and then lost to Man United, who looked topless before the game. So it's just something to consider. Gabriel Jesus as well against Fulham. Fulham look good, but they're not keeping clean sheets. Defensively, they've signed Duffy from Brighton, and then they have Ream, who I think will probably be the player who will eventually come out of the side. But there's goals in that game. If you have somebody like Martinelli, Jesus, Saka, these are players that you could consider captaining this week. My captaincy shout, though, would be Salah. Then, looking at the XG points, so this is based off of FPL Kiwi's model. You can see the person this week which has the most amount of points for their XP is Mohamed Salah with 7.88. Looking at the expected points for Haaland in comparison, it's much lower based on the fact that he only has an X-Mins of 68.5. That is something to consider. Pep has said so many times already that there is a likelihood that he won't play every game because of the fact he has injuries. I do think he'll play this game. I think he'll play a large portion of it, but he does have the risk of being subbed. So that's something to consider. I think with the game being on Sunday and then Let me just check when City's next game is. City have a game on... They have a game on Saturday against Palace, then they have a game on Wednesday, then another game on Saturday. And then in between that, they've got a Champions League game. So, while he is good for getting goals, there is a chance that he gets rotated. I don't see him not playing in the Champions League game, so there is most likely going to be a point where he could be rotated or rested against Nottingham Forest, which is a fixture in game week 5. That could be a point where you might consider bringing in somebody like Harry Kane, who just isn't going to get rotated. Looking at the rest of the players here, Trent is the second most likely player to get expected points this week. It's on the basis of if he does keep a clean sheet, he'll probably get an assist. Most likely play close to 90 minutes, if not all 90 minutes. And then after that is Harry Kane. The two most likely here are obviously Salah and Trent. I wouldn't recommend captaining Trent because Liverpool look leaky defensively, but it could be a good differential. I am just going to recommend captaining Salah. It's safe, it's boring, it's Bournemouth. That's what I'm going to say. Next up, I'm just going to go to this week's team. So let me get out of that. So this is the team currently. As I said already, the most boring transfer I can do is getting rid of Iverson. If I go to my team here, this is how it will be set up. So Iverson, Nico Williams, Andreas, Archer on the bench. Looking at the team, if you look at this, it's Bournemouth at home, 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 home. It's like ET, he's constantly phoning home. Every single player is at home. And I am keeping Neto because at this stage it's sunk cost. I've already lost to 0.2 million. And I'm not selling him before Newcastle, Bournemouth and Southampton. If he is going to score, it's going to be in one of these games. So yeah, the transfer this week is going to be... I'm going to keep Ward, but I'm going to put him onto the bench. I don't want him starting. What realistically you want to have is a player on your bench who's going to play. Looking at Williams, Andreas D's play, Archer does not play. So to make the transfer, I'm going to transfer out Iverson. And now, looking at the players who are available, let's scroll a bit to get to Mendy, don't I? Realistically, Leicester, Southampton, West Ham and Fulham are the best fixtures. But then Leeds also have good fixtures against Brighton, Everton, Brentford and Nottingham Forest. The one thing I do gotta say is that Chelsea have a better defence than Leeds. It's just a fact. If I had the money, I would almost consider getting in Lloris. It's just based on the X points. So yeah, as boring as it is, I'm going to sell Iverson for Mendy. I do think that in terms of... I think Raya's fixtures are nice as well, but the thing is with Brighton and with Brentford, they have okay defences, but I think Chelsea just have a better one. Yeah. Just going to check the X-Mins here for goalkeepers. 1 second. So... yeah, Ramsdale's number 1. Our Pickford's actually number 1 this week. Pickford is playing against Brentford. No, wouldn't take that. So yeah, anyway, it's a bit of waffle there. So yeah, I'm just gonna make the transfer now. Gonna bring in Mendy, but before that, let me check FPL statistics. I'm just checking if Mendy's price is gonna go down. Mendy from Chelsea? No, he's fine. He's only got a minus 12.6. So yeah, I'm going to bring in Mendy from Chelsea. I'll just do it now. So Iverson out, Mendy in, cost price 0 points. Then I've got Mendy against Leicester. So I've got double Chelsea defense, double City defense. Then I've got Trent against Bournemouth, Salah, captain against them. And then looking at the rest of the team, Vice is Haaland, Saka, Martinelli, Neto. I have 11 players at home. Realistically, this should get points. They're all from strong teams, except for Wolves. But yeah, I think there'll be points here. I would genuinely be disappointed with less than 70 points this week. Okay, so now Next up, there was a few questions from Twitter that I was asked. So let me just get onto that. So I asked a bunch of questions here. I'm going to make Game Week 4 video now. Any last minute questions that you want to ask in the video? So the first question here is it time to drop Trent? And the answer is no. You do not drop Trent this week. It's 7.5 million. He's one of the highest for XP. It's against Bournemouth as well. It's just not the time, to be honest with you. The next question then is Bruno or not? Simple answer for you: no, do not bring him in. He is not worth the 10 million or 9.8 million that he is now. Next up is, what about Harrison from Leeds? Does he deserve to be added to the team? I think he's a good player, certainly one to keep an eye on. Leeds, as I said a couple of weeks ago, they had 2 tough fixtures against Chelsea and then one against Brighton. That's why I was not considering them. And Harrison and all of the other players played very well against Chelsea. So if you made that move already, I would say congratulations. I didn't have the cojones to do it. But if you did, fair play to you. I just couldn't validate it. I wouldn't bring him in this week. All the Leeds fans on Twitter, on their forums, are saying that they don't expect a win against Brighton. Brighton are so good defensively and they always have good performance against them. Then Saka, hold or sell. Keep him. I think if you look at Arsenal's fixtures, next game's against Fulham. He's been playing well, he just hasn't been getting the points. Is it worth taking Saka out for Martinelli or anyone else really? Jack Harrison? Personally, if you haven't already brought in Martinelli, I wouldn't make the move just yet. It feels like a bit of a sideways transfer. A lot of the value has already gone into Martinelli, and you've got a bit of a differential in Saka. I think they're both good picks, but I think you might be wasting a transfer. It's just better to see. Against Fulham as well. How do I stop impulse selling players who score 10 plus points every week? You should tell me who you're planning to sell and I'll bring them in. What should I do with Grealish, Neto and Dalot? Well, it depends. I think Dalot might be decent this week against Southampton, especially if Casemiro plays. United are going to get better defensively. There's going to be value in that defense, whether it's from Dalot, Lisandro Martinez, or from Malacia if he does start. So I'd keep Dalot for now. But Neto as well, as I said earlier in the video, the price drops have already happened. The fixtures for the next 3, I'd keep him. So that's something to just have. And then I'm not sure about Grealish's fitness. It is something I would consider getting rid of. But at its price point, who would you bring in? You could bring in Rodrigo, I guess. But the fixture away from home, I'm not sure if I like it. So yeah, I would consider potentially transferring out Grealish for a Rodrigo, potentially. Puts a little bit more money in your bank as well. Or if you don't have Martinelli, you can bring him in as well. So yeah, anyway, that's been the video. If you've liked it, click like, subscribe, put a comment down below, ask any questions for what you want this week answered, and I'll get to them as soon as possible. Yeah, anyway, I've been Paddy. Like the video, subscribe, all that jazz. See ya. Peace.